Good morning, guys.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my student Tanya will open up with a short this thing about webinar.
Okay. Okay.
Tanya, over to you, bache.
Good morning, everyone. I'm audible?
Yes, bache, you are audible.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, you
Okay,
are
ma'am.
audible.
Okay, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. I, Tanya Gupta, welcome you all to another week of BVI Camp Professional Training Program. Hope everyone had a learning and coding week. So, here I have some important information about the same. We will be having half an hour objective type test on 28th August and syllabus for the same will be till Sunday class, that is till Node.js. Test is mandatory for everyone. Test window will be open for 2 hours from 5:30 to 7:30 on 28th August. You can join at any time after 5:30 to give a half an hour test, and after 7:30 the test window will be closed. The test window link will be shared in the WhatsApp group and through mails. I would like to repeat some of the points which have already been discussed among us. It is compulsory to maintain 75% attendance to get the certificate. Daily attendance has been uploaded, so it is advisable to all those participants to maintain it now who all have less than 75%. Half an hour separate doubt session are conducted with mentor after every class, and all your doubts are also taken up over WhatsApp group. We have shared all the codes through GitHub. Cheat sheets are uploaded on all social media handles. We have uploaded all the videos of session on our BVI Camp YouTube channel. Now, we have some more happy news to turn this COVID situation into more learning phase. We are organizing a webinar about cross-platform mobile app development using Flutter conducted by Amit sir. This session will be for an hour and there will be no cost for the webinar. Registration is open to all and e-certificate will be provided. Rest, all the details related to the webinar will be shared via WhatsApp group and emails. For any query, contact our team members. So happy studying, guys. Let's welcome our mentor to start our session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tanya. So, guys, before starting the new thing, that is, we are going to start the React. But first of all, we are on the Ajax section. So first we complete this because we have done something about the asynchronous. So I just open up the previous class code because we understand about something called async stuff and the callback things. So I am moving to the rest of the things because we have done asynchronous with using set timeout, and we have done the callback functionality, that is we are passing some functions that is called the success and the failure kind of functions. So we start with the limitation of the existing thing because callback has their own limitation. So I just give a quick recap of everything. So we have done this stuff of code. So I just keep copy paste this thing so it will save the time. So we created in a previous class the I am async, and we are passing two functions, success and the failure, and based on the condition we are either calling success or either we are calling the failure. And we know this method will be called after some amount of time. I mean, the success will be called after, let's say, 5 seconds, or the failure would be called after 5 seconds. So it means the point is either this success will be run or either this fail will be run, depends on the which condition is going to be passed. I mean, if A is 10 and we have the condition if A is greater than 10, then the success will become, otherwise a failure will become. And both of them, the success and the failure, are the callback functions. So we have done this thing. That's the first thing. And we have created two kind of functions. One is the success one and another is the failure one. So this is the fail function which we have created. So I just copy paste this, the same thing. So this is the fail function we have created. Also, we have created the thing called the success function. So two functions we have. So for the success, I just looking up where it is. I think that function is give me result, right? So that is the name of our success function. So we have two functions. right? And when we are calling this I am async function, so we are passing actually two functions. So I am using I am async, and here either I pass the success function, I mean the success is give me result. This is the name of our function, or either we pass the fail function. So it means we are passing two functions. We are handing over two functions to I am async, and this success is basically the function called give me result, and the failure is the fail one function. And based on the condition, it will going to be called either the success, either it will be fail, right? So this is how the async and the callback we have done in a previous class, right? So after 5 seconds, it will identify which function I need to call, either the pass or the failure, because we have the condition. So it is coming up the fail function, right? So that's a callback and async stuff. Now there is a huge problem with callback mechanism, because callback mechanism is not giving the data immediately, because in C++ or in a C language or in a Java language, we have learned the stuff called when we call a function. So let's say we have X variable, and here we are calling some function, right? So when we call a function, we will get a result, right, on a left hand side. So this left hand side is used to store the result. But when we call this async, so we do not have this left hand side. If you see this, we have a function. So we passing a function, give me result will be called later on. The fail will be called later on, right? There is a problem. So we want to do what? We want to do a async stuff. So we want asynchronous stuff, but we want to do this asynchronous stuff in a synchronous stuff, right? I mean, the bottom line is underlying it will do async, but the style of the coding must be the same, because the sync style of coding is much easier than compared to a async stuff, right? So we are actually moving to some mix up. I mean, I am just going to remix the two things. Synchronous style of coding, but behind the scene it is doing the asynchronous things. Make sense? So this is what the target is. So it means I am going to do the async stuff, but the style of the code would be like this. Now the question is how this is possible, because when I'm calling the function will be giving a result in after 5 seconds. After 5 seconds it is giving. So how I will get a result immediately? It is not possible at all. I never get a result immediately. The result will become in a future. The word is the result will become in a future. It would not become right now. So the X value is what? It's a future value that would become. So that's why from ECMA 6 onwards, ES6 onward, I mean the 2015 onwards, they have created a new feature called promise. So where it is more like, when you are asking for async things, the async result would not become. So it will give you a promise. It would not give you a value. So it is same like when you go to the Domino's and you ask for a pizza, they will give you a slip. That slip is a promise. It means the promise says, I will give you a pizza after some moment of time. Same here, when you call a async function here. So this is a call of async function. But when you call it, it is giving what? It is giving you a promise, or you can say it is a future value, right? So that promise does not have the value, but it is a promise to give you a value after some period of time. But the style of coding is now like this. It would not be like this, right? So that's why the callback the callback way of coding is much complex compared to a promise way, because promise way is more on the sync style. So the callback way is from the day one of the JavaScript, but from ECMA 6 onward, I mean the 2015 onwards, they have understand the pain of the developer. They understand the callback somehow is difficult to understand. That's why they have created something called promises, right? So we will get a promise. So the promise is not a realistic value. We can say it is not a realistic value. It is just a fake value, I can say, because when you ask for a pizza, you do not get a pizza immediately. You will get a slip. So you cannot eat a slip, right? So that slip is basically a promise, right? It means it has a reference of your original pizza. So after some moment of time, when you show the slip, you will get a pizza, right? So same here, when we show this promise, we will get the data. That's why there is a thing called promise. I hope everyone understand why we are moving to the terminology called promise. And it is absolutely essential for the React and Node. So React and Node, most of the time they are using this callback and the promise fundamental. So do not forget the callback mechanism. Do not forget the promise mechanism. Both of the promises much better way compared to a callback style, because you need to pass two functions and you need to remember what the value will become, right? So I just start with an example. I just start how the promise comes in the picture. So for example, we have a function, like I'm writing function, right? And this function says, let's say I'm saying this function says deliver data, right? So this will give a data, but data would become some moment of time. So I will write this thing called set timeout, and we are using set timeout just to see the intention how the async will work. So I pass a callback function inside it. So this is my callback function which I am passing here, and inside this callback function, so it is quite similar like this. So set timeout with function. So inside this function, I will write console.log I call after, let's say, 5 seconds. Same stuff I am writing. So I call after 5 seconds, and this is the callback is done, and after callback I am specifying the time. So this is the time, right? So it simply means this function will be going to give the data after the 5 seconds, but I want to return the data, and you cannot return in async. Remember this thing. You cannot return in async. That's why you learn callback. That's why you learn callback. Make sense? So now the point number one is I will specify a promise. So promise says you can return a promise because promise does not have the value. Promise can have the future value. So it has a future value. It does not have the real value right now. So always remember this example. Pizza, when you order for a pizza, you do not have the pizza. You have the promise to deliver a pizza, right? Make sense? Single is asking what you're asking. This is function within function. Yes, of course. Set timeout is a function, and this is your passing a function. So it is primarily same like I am async, and it has a give me result. So give me result is what? It's a function, right? That's why it's a callback. So function within a function, when you're passing, it's a callback. Make sense? So set timeout will call your function, but after 5 seconds, right? So it is same like when I am calling async and I'm passing give me result and fail. So both are the functions. So we are saying it is a callback. I hope you understand this thing. Now the point number one is this function, this delivery data would not return the value because the value would not become. So we'll wrap this thing inside a promise. So we'll write PR equals to new promise. So this is a new API they have introduced. So there is a new API they have introduced called promise. So we need to create a promise, and then we need to return a promise. Make sense? So we need to create a promise and we need to return a promise. So the point, this promise is an API which is provided by the ECMA 6. So from ECMA 6 onwards, you have something called promise. And this promise says you must have a callback inside it. So it has a function inside it. So I am writing function inside it. So this is a function inside it, and inside this function I am specifying resolve and reject. So resolve and reject are the arguments of this function, right? So you need to remember this thing. You can give any name. I mean, you can give A, you can give B. This is also possible, but the standard is you just specify the name called resolve and reject. So it simply says whatever the async stuff. I mean, in promise you will write some async stuff. So we will actually returning a promise and we will get the results some moment of time. So Bhavya is asking, we are returning promise so that we get value instantly, right? So we get the value, but it does not have the value. It has the future value, right? So that's why we want to give an illusion of sync style, because when we call some sync style thing, it will give the data immediately. So same style we have. So the point number one is this promise is basically wrapping everything. Right. So it is wrapping everything. So it is wrapping what? So the number one point is it wrapping what? It wrapping the async stuff. Always remember the promise is wrapping the async stuff. So it has the asynchronous stuff, right? And now what it has the resolve and reject. So resolve is like a success callback. Remember this thing. It is like a success callback. It is like a failure callback. Make sense? So these two are behind the scene. These two are the functions which is provided by the promise itself. So we are not defining it. They define it. So resolve is a callback for a success. Reject is a callback for a failure, right? So whenever after 5 seconds, there would be a chance of the success. So we will call it's a resolve. If there is a chance of failure, we will call it as a reject. And I told you this name is not mandatory to write. You can write A and B also, but it would not be meaningful. I hope Bhavya is asking the same thing. Explain resolve and reject. So I hope you understand resolve is a success thing. Reject is a failure thing. And this is just a name of a variable. You can use any name, right? So the point number one is promise contain async stuff, and it has two things, resolve and reject. So now the point is it has some async stuff, so you can write this stuff, set timeout. I just cut down this code and I paste it here. So this set timeout is what? This set timeout has this function, entire function, and it has I call after 5 seconds. It has I call after 5 seconds, and this is the 5 second time. Makes sense? So the point is this set timeout will be called inside the promise. So it will call inside the promise because promise contain the async code. So I put set timeout inside it, and it will invoke this function which is saying I am call after 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds it is going to give me the data. So to give me the data, I will say resolve, right? And I'm saying I am the data from async. So let's say I'm writing this thing. I am the data from async. So this would be the message which I am passing it here in the resolve. So this you can treat this as a data for me, right? Or you can also specify, let's say I have some variable, let x, then let y 20, and suppose I want to give this data along with this. So I'm saying x plus y. Right, I put in a bracket, so I want to do a priority to the plus operation, I mean to the addition operation. Otherwise, it will do the concatenation. So the point number one is this resolve is a function which is I am calling after 5 seconds. So it will resolve it. I mean, it is actually like I order for a pizza, after 30 seconds, it is resolving my pizza. So it means it is handed over the pizza to me. So it is most likely this. So the point is, we have the resolve function, either we can have the reject function. It means if there is some failure chances, so instead of calling the resolve, I will call a reject. Make sense? So the point is when I call this function, so this is my whole function. When I call this function, it will immediately return the promise. So the point is, first of all, it creates the promise. So this is the creation of the promise. So the promises get created and it has the function, but it know this function will be run, I mean this inside function, this I'm talking about this function will be run after the 5 seconds. So promise does not have any work to do. So promise return automatically. So the point number one is this function is returning what? It returning a promise. And what promise has something called async code. So it has something called async code. And this async code will be run after 5 seconds. Once it is run, it will give me a resolve. So the promises get resolved. So the promises get resolved. So it means I have the data of the promise. Makes sense? So now the point is how I will call it. It is more likely when I call a sync thing. So it is pretty much easy the thing. So I will write here where P I just use for promise, and then I use del data. I mean the delivery the data to me. So when I call this thing deliver the data, so it is giving what? It is giving a promise. So it means it will first execute this line. This line will be get executed. This amount of code, I mean the internal function of this code will be called after 5 seconds. So it does not have anything to do. So it will return a promise. So this promise is handed over to this. So P has what? P has this promise. So promise I handed over. So once this promise I have, so when I'm going to print a P, what is the expectation? What it will give? When I print a P, it will give a pending. So it will saying the status pending, I do not have the data. So it has a thing called pending. Once it has the data, so it has two operations. I mean, either the data is resolved or either the data is rejected. Make sense? So by default, when you print this promise, it is always give a P. P is a promise, but it has the status. So it means promise has the status, and that status is called pending, either resolve or either reject. Make sense? So Nirosha is asking if we give A and then bracket, what is A in this? Right? What is A in this? Okay, you are saying, I think your question is if I give a name A and B, I think you are asking this thing. So if you are asking resolve name is A and its name is B, so you always write here A. Make sense? Because the first parameter is always a resolve, right? So it is just a name. You can give any name here, either X, either B. So if you write A, so you are calling A and then bracket, so it will work properly. Make sense? So it is just a naming thing. So I am just preferring this name because it is easier for the developer to understand this is the resolve thing, this is the reject thing. Make sense? So the point is, I hope this thing is clear. Now when we call this A, so it is not going to print. Nirusha, it is not going to print. It is just intimating the promise you are resolved. Make sense? It is giving the intimation to the promise you are resolved. So it is more like when I am saying you're asking for a pizza, your pizza is delivered. So it means it is not printed. It means it is get delivered. Now it's your responsibility to serve on the table. Now it is your responsibility to print the data, right? So this A is not going to print anything. It is just it is giving the data to the promise. It means it is giving the data to the promise. So it means you have the pizza in your hand. Now it's your responsibility where you are placing this pizza on a table, right? So it means it is more like a printing. So it is your deciding factor to print it. So the point is, Vikas is asking how promise know the set time mode is executed. The answer is this resolve, right? The answer is resolve, because when you call the resolve, Vikas, the promise get intimated because this resolve portion is handed over to the promise, right? So this resolve and reject are the parameter of the promise, right? These actually resolving, I mean, these are actually intimating to the promise you are resolved. And we have the reference of it. So if you just see this thing, it is more like when you define a promise, so promise is like an object creation because it has a new. So you are creating an object, right? So when you're creating an object, so P are having a reference of this memory. So everything is done inside this memory. So it means the resolve and the reject are part of this memory. Makes sense? So whenever they have resolve after 5 seconds, so it means they does the changes on this memory. And because they does the changes in this memory, so promise is pointing to this memory. So PR, I mean the PR, I will say, or P, I will say, right? So P get the intimation that the promise is resolved. I hope you understand this thing. So when you write resolve, it is a part of the promise. So it will intimate the PR that PR is returned and it is stored in a P. So P is actually pointing to this location where the PR is pointing up, right? So you will get the data. So resolve is a part of the promise. That's why it is resolving it. Make sense? So when I'm running this thing, so when I'm running this PR and then I am trying to print this console.log and P is and then P, right? I'm printing this P. So when I'm printing this P, you will get what? You will get a promise, but the status of the promise is pending state, right? So the point number one is when you call this del data, that is a async function, it will return immediately the promise, but the promise is in the pending state. After some moment of time, this promises get resolved. I mean, this after the 5 seconds, it is get resolved. Once it is get resolved, now the important point, when this get resolved, there is an important thing that is p.then. So there is a thing called p.then says what happened with my promise. Either it is resolved. So it means whenever you call the resolve, resolve internally call then, right? Make sense? So it means this then will know it is get resolved, because if you just see this thing, this resolve is a part of set timeout, right? Because set timeout has this callback function and resolve is a part of this function, right? So it means whenever the 5 seconds happen, this function is called. When the 5 seconds happen, then this function is called, then the resolve is there. So see this brackets. I hope you understand.
Sir, I'm asking that what if we don't write resolve in it? What if we just like let x equal to 10, y 20 and console.log statement? What about that?
So the point is, think about it. For example, you're asking for a pizza, right? So your pizza is going to be delivered by this cook, right? So it is more like we are asking for a pizza and we are waiting for a promise. It means you ask for a pizza and it is going to prepare it, but it does not give you a promise, right? Or either you return this promise. Makes sense? So you have this promise. So you have at least the slip in your hand, but this cook is actually not returning. I mean, it is not resolving it. So it means when it is not resolving, so it is more like it is in the kitchen, and in the kitchen it prepare the pizza and it is not telling anyone I create a pizza. So it means console.log is like this. So if you write console.log, so it will be get printed inside this function. So you never get a return statement. Make sense? So think like this.
So it is mandatory, sir.
It is absolutely for think about in this point. Now, if you have a function and I am calling your function is not returning the data to me and you are printing inside your function. So is that function mean for me? Think about this thing. in a C language, if you create A plus B program and you're printing the stuff on your function, but I want the data, I want the return value, then I can do some computation on my end. Then I want to print the data. But if you are printing it, so that function is meaningless for me because it is giving void. I hope you understand this point. So this resolve is more like a return statement. So it is returning the value to me. So now I can process that data. So if the data is get printed at your end, so it is meaningless for me. I hope you understand this point.
Yes, sir. Sir, so the main logic is if resolve is not returning anything, then it will show pending, and if it
it is keep pending.
Okay.
So it is keep pending. So it is infinite pending for you, right?
So
So
behind logic is that, sir.
So it is acting like a return, right? So if you see this closely, it is more like a callback stuff. Makes sense? So Prapti, what do you not understand? Bhavya asking, can we give both reject and definitely we can give both reject and resolve, but conditionally, right? So in a condition base, I can give. So think about. So I am talking about the use. I'm just because Vikas has some question. That's why I'm just giving the answer. So I will go give on this then stuff also. So the point is you can have the thing called resolve as well as the reject, but that must be conditionally. It would not resolve after reject or reject after resolve. So it would be like, for example, you can have inside this, you can have some if condition, right? And inside if either you will do resolve or either you will do reject. I hope guys you understand this thing. So either you give resolve, either you give reject, right? I hope Bhavya you understand this thing. So you can have both things, resolve and reject. So we will see this thing. Now the point number one is, guys, when we do the resolve, so think about resolve is like a return statement for you. It means it is returning the value, right? So it is returning the value, but it is in own style, right? So you cannot say it is a entirely returning. So it is just an assumption. It is returning it, right? So it is returning the value to the promise. So the promise, when we call this del data, it will give this promise, right? This promise would not be resolved, right? It is not resolved. It is resolved after 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it is get resolved. When it is resolved, then call. Remember this thing. When the resolve is happened, then it call, right? So it is more like when I have the pizza, then I eat it. It is like this. So if you see this English, when I have pizza, I mean when pizza is resolved, then I eat it. So resolve and then work parallelly, right? So when you do this resolve internally call then. So then says you have the data now. What you want to do with this data, right? So I hope this thing is clear. What is the use of the then? It means you have the data right now. So you have the data. So then is saying you have the data. What you want to do now? What you want to do with this? You want to do some calculation with it. You want to do some other stuff with it. So I will say function, makes sense, function, and then I have the data, right? So then says you have a function and inside this function you have the data, and I'm saying console.log I receive the data, right? And what is the data I have received? I received the data called data. Make sense? And this data can be have anything, right? So I think Gunjan is saying promise will give the slip before 5 seconds, right? Absolutely, right? So Gunjan, promise will give the slip. It means it will give you a future. It will say you have the data, but later on. Make sense? So my video is lagging, guys.
No, sir, it's fine.
Okay, Prapti, can you check it at your end? I think video is lagging at your end because everyone says it is not lagging. Okay, so now the point is, guys, we have promise.then and we have the data. That data will become in a future, we know, whenever the resolve is happen. I hope everyone you understand this thing. Now, there are chances that data would not become. It is like when I order a pizza, but there would be some problem. The pizza cannot be delivered. So there would be some chances. It means that is a reject chance. So I can go to the catch, and inside the catch, I can have the error, right? So I can have the error. So I write error and I write this thing. Make sense? And from here, I will write console.log and I'm saying error is comma error, right? So if there is a failure, then error will come. I hope you understand. So there is a thing called then, there is a thing called catch. So if somebody asks how you can handle the exception, you have the thing called, you have the catch without try. Makes sense? Without try. So it is not using a try catch. Try catch is entirely used for synchronous code. But for asynchronous code, you have the promise. Promise has the then and the catch. Then means when you have the resolve state, then will be called. If you have the failure state, I mean the reject, then the catch will be called. Makes sense? So let's try this thing. So when I'm calling this del data, it will be go here. It will create a promise. After 5 seconds, it will say I am call after 5 seconds, and immediately it will call then when there is a resolve. Then it will say I receive the data. So let's try this thing. So if you see P is promise pending, it is coming pending, right? By default, it is giving the pending state. After this, it is get resolved. Once it is resolved, it is saying I call after 5 seconds, and immediately when it is called I call after 5 seconds, it is resolving the data. When it is resolving the data, so it will give the data to the then. So it means then will receive the data. So then has I received the data. So that's why it is saying I received the data. What it received? It received the data. Data is what? I am the data from async. So I am the data from async. Make sense, guys? So this is how the promise is working. So promises is much more cooler feature compared to a callback style, right? Right. So Bhavya is asking, we always have to call then. Of course, we have to call the then. Then says you have the resolve thing. Catch says you have the failure case, right? I hope everyone understand how the promise is working. So this is absolutely needed thing for our React journey and for our Node.js journey. This concept hugely used. So after 5 seconds, the resolve is execute, resolve call then. Makes sense, right? So this is the fundamental. I hope everyone understand, because in previous class we have spent around 2 hours to understand the async stuff, and this is just a juice of that 2 hours, right? Because this is the crux for this. So I hope everyone understand the promise. So we have the start of the promise. Now this is a time to move to the React, and in a React we are going to use this promise stuff with server side, right? So it means the agenda is we start with a React stuff, and we aware most of the things right now. So in a React we start first the React, and then we connect a React with some server, right? Server give the data. So when we are calling a server give the data. So server would not give the data immediately. So it will give what? It will give the promise. So the promise we have in the React, and then here we use then and catch. It means if the then is working, so data we have, otherwise a catch will work, right? So it means this become a Ajax calls for us, right? So we will incorporate this thing with React. Make sense? So that's why do not forget this promise stuff. This is absolutely needed for the React stuff. Right. Even we can do with the JavaScript, but it would be a rework, because we will do it with the first in a JavaScript, then we will do it in a React stuff. So we are moving to the React and we will use it there. So Venkat is asking, resolve function do not have definition part because it's a built-in function. Absolutely, it is a built-in function. So we are just calling it. We are just invoking it. So that's why the promise has the thing called function, and inside function it has a resolve and the reject. Make sense? I hope, guys, this you understand. So Nitish is asking, it is pretty much simple. When you do this resolve stuff, I hope you understand. Resolve is called after a period of 5 seconds. Whenever the resolve is called, resolve internally make a call to the then. Remember this thing. Resolve internally make a call to the then. But if you have the reject, to reject doing the internally call to the catch. Make sense? So when you do this resolve, it will be go here. If there is a reject, it will go here. Make sense? I hope, Nitesh, you understand this thing. Pranav is asking, subscribe in Angular is promise in React. So Pranav, it is entirely different scheme. React also support this subscription things also. Angular also support the promise thing, right? So right now I'm not opening this thread because it is entirely different thing, but I am suggesting subscription in Angular and subscription in promise, both it has. React also has both of the thing, right? Deepika, resolve is basically whenever you have the data, the resolve will be called, and whenever the resolve will be called, that then will be called, right? So it means resolve is more like a return statement to you. It means you are returning some data after 5 seconds, but you know in async you cannot return. So we want to intimate to the promise. We want to intimate to the promise that data is get resolved. So when you call this del data, it will give a promise, right? It will give a promise. And promise, when you write this p promise, so promise does not have the value, right? So it does not have the value right now because it is in the pending state. It is in the pending state, right? So resolve is basically convert this pending state to the resolve state. It means when you want to return the data to the promise, you need to call a resolve, right? When you are saying the data would not become, then you call reject. I hope, Deepika, this thing is clear. So in async, you need to call either resolve or either reject, right? So if you also try, guys, if you also try this thing, that is, if you want to check what is right now in the P, because P is a promise, right? Because initially it is pending. Now, if you just check it out, because everything is run, so you will see it is saying fulfilled. It means after resolve reject, it is get fulfilled. So first state is pending. Next stage is either it is resolve or either it is reject. Once it has happened, then it will be fulfilled state. Make sense? So these are the state of promise. So most of the time interviewer will ask what is the initial state of the promise? It is pending. Then it would be get resolve or either reject, and after this it would be fulfilled. I mean, it is get completed. Make sense, guys? Any other question, guys, in your mind? I hope you understand what is async thing. And now we are going to move to the React stuff. And in a React, we are going to implement all of these things. So a lot of things we have understand in the JavaScript. React.js is basically a standard way to do a code, because in JavaScript, it's all up to you how you will build it. So for example, if you are building the tic-tac-toe, you are building the calculator, if you exchange your codes, because most of them submit the code on a repository. So if you exchange the code, you need to understand your code styling, because everyone is doing its own way, right? But React will provide you some standard way. So we are moving to the React thing. So first we understand what exactly the React, right? So React, the first point for the React is entirely for, I just crossed these things, right? So React is entirely for the front-end web development, right? So it is entirely for the front-end web development. So it means you are developing everything on a front-end side. You are not doing anything on the back-end side. Makes sense? So it means you're doing everything on a front-end side. So think like in this way. In this way, React is everything on a front end stuff, right? So like JavaScript is doing everything on a front end stuff. So why we are learning this React.js? What is the problem with the JavaScript? We will understand. So the only point is it is on the front end side. So when we learn this node, then we go to the back end side. But the primary thing is both is using the JavaScript. That's why we're moving to the front end side. Now the first point is, because we are learning what we are learning the front end web development. Now, what is exactly on the front end side? It means the page creation is on the front end side. So the page creation is on the front end side. So as a developer, the front end developer must know HTML, right? So that's why the training is on the HTML you learn. You learn the CSS stuff, right? And then you learn the JavaScript stuff. So it means you learn these three stuffs already: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now you have a choice to learn Angular, React, or Vue, right? Why we choose React in this training? Because you learn JavaScript, right? React is using the JavaScript, and it is one of the best popular thing in the market. So if you just see the graph in the market, React is number 1 right now. Number 2 is Angular, and number 3 is the Vue.js. And React learning curve is much easier compared to Angular, because Angular anyhow is using TypeScript. So it means you need to additionally learn TypeScript first of all. It means first cover up the JavaScript, then cover up the TypeScript, then cover up the Angular, right? But after JavaScript, you will directly jump to the React. That's why we are moving to the React, right? So the point number 1 is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then the learning curve is the React. That's why we are moving to the React thing, right? So now the point is, we learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all this stuff is, we learn this stuff basically for the thing for this reason. HTML is basically for the skeleton purpose, CSS basically for the designing purpose, and JavaScript is basically the internal system, I mean the logic purpose, right? So that's why I use these pictures, right? So you understand we need these three things, right? So Bhavya, what you want to repeat? Can you please explain? What do you not understand? So the point is, I hope everyone understand we have this HTML, CSS, JavaScript, this genre, and we know HTML is basically used for this skeleton purpose, CSS for the designing purpose, JavaScript is basically for the functionality purpose, right? When we talk about the Angular, React, and Vue, there is a lot of differences. If Satish is asking, there is a difference between Vue.js and React.js. Yes, of course. Vue.js is something. It is a remix version of Angular and React. Right? It means the best part of this, and they mix it this, because React is built by the Facebook, Angular is built by the Google, and these are the ex-employees of Angular, or I mean the Google ex-employees built this Vue.js, right? So Vue.js actually has the mix of feature of Angular and React. So it is best suited when you know either both of them. If you know these things, then the Vue.js is there, right? So that's why this Vue.js is there. I hope you understand this thing. So Vue.js is entirely related to when you know best things of, I mean, because you are a beginner, so the React is best suited here. Why we are not learning Angular? Because I told you React is basically used for let's say for standardization purpose and for the Vue. So many of them are asking so many questions. So I just giving one by one answer. So why do we use React? Just park this question because right now I just not started. Why do we use React? We are right now talking about the layer. It means what you have learned and where we are moving, right? So yet I have not started what is React. So I am just talking about we have three choices to learn. It means for a front-end development, you have three choices. You have Angular, you have the React, you have the Vue. I am just saying why we have not choose Angular, because for Angular, you need to learn the TypeScript first of all. So it means the learning curve is bigger and is best suited for those who already belongs to Java or .NET things, because Angular more criteria is more closely to the object-oriented programming. React is more closely on the JavaScript style. So it is actually using, React is using this JavaScript style. So it is actually React purposes. You can think about it has the functional stuff, it has the async stuff, but Angular is more on the TypeScript style. So it has a more on the class stuff, right? More on the object-oriented style. So because we know all this stuff, so this is well suited for a JavaScript journey. So that's why the React we are using. That's why most of the front-end developer, because most of the front-end developer belongs to a JavaScript, they not belongs to Java, .NET kind of stuff. So they love React.js. That's why the React.js is more popular compared to any other. Makes sense? Angular, why I have not choose? Because Angular is entirely a framework. So I just give you a brief. That is for front-end development, we have three choices: Angular, React, and Vue. Make sense? When we talk about the React, the best part is JavaScript. So only the JavaScript we need to use, right? So it means we use something called ECMA 6 feature, ECMA 7 feature, ECMA 8 feature. So we are using this latest ECMA there, right? In a React style. But when we use Angular, so we first of all need to learn the TypeScript style. TypeScript is entirely close to very object-oriented stuff. Where we use the JavaScript, it is more on the functional stuff, more on the async stuff, right? So TypeScript says it has all the JS features as well as the TS features. So that's a learning curve is bigger. And one more thing I want to add, Angular is entirely a framework. So it is a framework. So it means it has a lot of pre-built things inside it. So it means we need to learn all the pre-built things. React is not a framework. React is just a library. So it has very few functions it has. And that's why it is very, very flexible to learn, right? So it means, for example, if you're using an Angular and you don't like the features, so for example, if Angular is saying we have thousands of features and you don't like thousands of all of those features, or your application does not require these much bigger features, so you don't want to go for a framework. So if you start with a very basic small application, you start with a library, and gradually, I'm using a word, gradually you can add some new plugins or new libraries inside it, right, or modules inside it, right? So it would be become equivalent to the framework. Make sense, guys? So the first difference between is it has the Angular is a capable for framework, React is for a library purpose. I hope, guys, this makes sense. This is the major difference between. So the point number one is, I hope we understand this difference. And Gunjan is asking difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. The difference is, I hope you understand. JavaScript is the core, and what sort of things which is missing in the JavaScript, like in JavaScript does not have the class feature. It does not have the inheritance feature. It does not have the feature of abstract classes. It does not have the feature of interfaces. It does not have the feature of overloading. So these features are hugely inspired from the Java side, or you can say .NET side, C# side. So they use those features, they add on these features in the TypeScript. So that's why it has the data types. It is not loosely typed. It is a strict type, right? So that's a different segment, and Angular using this segment, React does not. So you cannot say this TypeScript is wonderful or React is not, right? So React is, that's why the Facebook, the Instagram, the Flipkart, a lot of bigger website is right now in the React. So React is much flexible. That's why it is much popular right now with the developers, right? I hope you understand the difference between TypeScript and the JavaScript. So to understand more on the TypeScript, this is not right time, right? So Ritik is also saying TypeScript is like anomalic stuff because it does not create anything new. They just borrow so many features from some other languages, and then they build the TypeScript, right? I hope Gunjan, you understand the difference between TypeScript and this stuff. Now, so Nitesh is asking, would final output product will be the same if we will use any of them? Of course, it is more like it would be the same. I mean, if you use Angular or React, but it is all about the choices. So you can, Nitesh, you can think about, you have a choice of, let's say, Maruti car, you have a choice of, let's say, Honda car, you have a choice of Hyundai car. And then the outcome is everything is a car, but there is a difference for a need purpose, right? It means what sort of need you have. Makes sense? So people are buying the cars based on the need, right? For example, if I do cross country drive, right, or cross city drive, I will say, if I do cross city drive, I need something called SUVs, right? That's why the SUVs in the market. So if you do most of the time Delhi to Chandigarh or Delhi to Punjab, this kind of cross city drives, so you need some SUV. But if you're doing in a city drive and you are most of the time you're driving on a plain street, you need some sedan car, right? Because it is more luxury, more comfortable. So the point number one is either use Angular, either use React, or either you use Vue. The end outcome is pretty much same, but it is all about the need of the project. That need of the project will tell you which one you want to use. For example, you have a developers which is highly experienced on the Java and the .NET side, and you want to make those developers, these are the backend developers, you want these developers also work for a front-end side. So I will teach Angular for those, because they have the experience in Java and .NET. They're already very good in the object-oriented stuff. They are very poor in the functional stuff because they already work on the so much on object-oriented side. Then they know the each depth of the object-oriented. So that is recommended to train them in a TypeScript. That is recommended to train them in Angular. Make sense? But if my developer set is mostly for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, like you, all of them is understanding this thing. So React is best suited for those. Make sense? They do not have the experience on the frameworks. They do not have the experience on the Java or C# kind of bigger programming. So they are more capable to understand the React. Make sense? I hope this thing is understandable. Now, somebody is asking about the Vue. Vue, I am saying Vue is a remix feature. It means it is mixing up the Angular, it is mixing up the React, and these two things are mixed up into the Vue.js. Right, that's why we are using this Vue.js. So it is the best part of Angular and React. They have mixed it because they create this Vue.js in round up 2018 starting. They have created this thing, but React is in the 2015. Angular is in the 2016. Right, so they are quite older. They have bigger communities. They have the bigger documentation. Right, so they have much bigger, stronger community, bigger documentation compared to Vue.js. Right. So that's why the Angular React is quite popular compared to Vue.js. So Vue.js is a new kid in the market, which actually committing, it has the Angular and React mix up of these things. So Bhavya is asking when to use Vue. I am saying it is for the front-end development. It is entirely needed when you want to use both of the best feature. I mean, you want to use the Angular feature, you want to use the React feature, then you go for a Vue.js, right? But you must be aware. It means if you have an experience on Angular React, then it would be very easy to understand. Otherwise, the struggle is the same, because if you don't know what is best in the Angular, what is best in the React, so how you can mix it, right? So it is primarily for you, it is same for a React or Angular, right? So the Vue.js is working best when you are quite familiar with the Angular React, then your team work better on the Vue.js side. Makes sense. But the problem sense is when you use the Vue.js, the initial problem you will face is that it would not have large documentation. It would not have the large community. That is the issue you will face if you are starting the development. But compared to React and Angular, it has large community, large documentation. So if you stuck anywhere, Stack Overflow is there, right? So much more help is there. Makes sense? I hope guys you understand this thing. So this is how the people are deciding what to be learned. So it means this is the first step. You are learning React. Once you are very, very comfortable with React, I am suggesting you can learn the Angular, because number one is the React and number two is the Angular, right? So you can learn the number two thing, and when you are familiar with number one and number two, then you can move to the third thing, that is a Vue.js. Makes sense? Then Vue.js is much easy for you because you know both of the best features. Make sense? So Nitesh is saying for a great so Nitesh, the point is to become a great developer, it is not required to learn Angular, React or Vue.js. But if you want to become a architect in a company, it means you want to become a decision maker, which technology is supposed to be used, then you must be aware of a lot of technologies, right? So it's all about your goal set. It means if your goal set is I want to become a technology head in the company, and my future is after 5 years or 7 years, I would be a technology head, I would be a solution manager in a company, then it is absolutely required to learn a lot of things. But if it is I want to become a developer, so there is a job for Angular, there's a job for a React, there is a job for a Vue.js, right? I hope I answer every question. Abhishek is asking ECMA 6, ECMA 7 and ECMA, they have the different functions, or ECMA 6, ECMA 7, ECMA 8 are the standard, Abhishek. These are the standards and they have some new features available, right? So like we have learned few of feature of ECMA 6, few of feature of ECMA 8. So we will use so many features in the React. So React says I support latest ECMA. I mean it used the latest ECMA script. In short, it is ES, right? So we learn those features when we are learning the React, and then we incorporate those features together. Make sense? So now I am moving to the next thing. I hope this thing is clear to everyone. Now the point is when we're creating a website, I hope everyone is aware how to write HTML and how to write CSS. Is anyone facing the issues to writing HTML and CSS stuff? If I'm saying to all of you, for example, we want to build this kind of website, right? Flipkart, if I want to build, right? So my first question is to all of you, how much line of code you are going to write when you're going to create this home page? I mean, I'm just asking about the designing stuff. I'm not asking about anything else. I'm saying if you're doing HTML or CSS stuff, how much code you will write? Any guess? So Satish say 1,000, it means 1,000 or more than 1,000 it would be. I mean 1,000 line or more than 1,000 lines. So think about, if you go to the view page source, you will see huge. It's a huge thing they have written. So my question to all of you guys. So this is the one developer is writing this the whole page, or multiple developers are writing this whole page? Multiple developers, right? So if multiple developers are writing, so how it is possible? Think about how it is possible to write multiple. I mean, how multiple developers will work on one single file. So think about, you learn HTML and CSS, and you know in HTML you will write a one page, right? So this is a one page, and you in this page, if you just see, it has this slider. So it has this slider stuff, right? It has this menu bars, right? It has a search bar. It has this more section. It has the deal of the day. It has plenty of sections inside it, right? So this page is entirely very, very, very complex. So we need some design strategy to divide this page into small chunks, and these small chunks are actually called components. Make sense? So we cannot work in a one single page. We need to divide into the components, right? So component is like component. How we can see what exactly the components? We can think about the components are like Lego toys. If you know these toys, Lego toys. So I will say Lego block toys, right? So if you just see in our childhood, when we want to prepare anything, we use these kind of toys, right? So if you just see the one toy, I mean, this one is a block, right? And when we are mixing this block, we have the output, right? So we have the output like this. So we are constructing everything when we are actually working on these blocks. Make sense? I hope everyone understand what exactly the component means. We are not writing the full page. We are writing the small components, and these components we are actually mixing up, and then we are creating a page. Or like Jatin is saying, we can reuse component. Of course, if you just see this picture, Jatin, we are creating different toys. We are just mixing up these components here and there, and to build different shapes. So same here, we reuse the components to make the pages, right? So now the question is, Divyanshu is asking how we can combine these chunks. So there are some automation utility provided by the React that is called Webpack. So we use Webpack, which is responsible to combine everything into a one page. Makes sense? So it means we are not building the one page, we are building the components, and these components are combined by whom? It is combined by the tool called Webpack. So Webpack is basically what? So if you just go to this website, you will understand this definition. So Webpack says it is a module bundler, because you are dividing your application into small components, I mean into small modules, and to bundle all these modules, we have something called Webpack. So when we install create, when we do this React stuff, it has the inside, it has the Webpack. Make sense? It has the Webpack inside it. That is the bundling tool. That answer is, it's a bundling tool, right? Make sense? I hope everyone understand. Now the point is, we are starting the development in a component style. So we are dividing application into components. So let's start with some PPT stuff. And so we understand when we're dividing a bigger kind of website, we want to divide it into the components. So it means what sort of development you are learning? You are learning component-based development. I hope everyone understand. You are learning component-based development. Now, how this component-based development is working? Just see with some animations. See this animation. So component-based development says, as a developer, that's a current trending way. So the component-based development says, you have a website, and this website is built up of small components, right? So it is like a Lego blocks. So it means you have this Lego blocks. These are the small components, and these small components are actually the divs. These all small components are the small divs. And when you mix up these divs, so these divs, I mean these small components, are talking to each other also. It means they are exchanging the data in between, right? So they are exchanging the data, and when they are exchanging the data, so actually they are making the small divs. So it is like a divs, right? And when we are mixing these divs, we are actually building our web page. Make sense? So it means what we are doing? We are doing the components. Make sense? Is this clear, guys? P5 is not useful for us. It is just for play purpose, right? It is, if you want to learn some gaming stuff, animation stuff, then P5 is required. Otherwise, it is not. Learn vanilla JavaScript, which I told you, right? Vanilla thing is not funny, right? It is something which is actually for the deep learning. Like if you learn the async, it is not funny. It is somehow, it is for deep knowledge inside it. Makes sense? So development is quite serious job, right? It is not like a fun way. That's P5 is something for doing the fun stuff, right? It means you're learning in a some fun style, right? Makes sense. So P5JS, when it is required, when you're doing some animation stuff and you want to doing some gaming stuff, then they have written this P5 thing. But I'm recommending learn vanilla JavaScript. I hope everyone understand what exactly the component-based development, why we are moving to the component-based development. So first absolute answer for you. If anyone asks what is React.js, first answer is divide application into small components, right? So it means the entire view. It means the entire view is divide into small components. It means your entire page is divided into the small components. Components are at the end is a JavaScript. It is JS, right? All components are the JavaScript. Make sense? So whatever the component you will use, it is a JavaScript at the end. So all the components are the JS stuff. Make sense? It is the JavaScript stuff. So inside the JS, we are writing the HTML, right? We are writing the HTML. Now the story is entirely different. You learn HTML file. Inside the HTML, you write the script file. Now there is a huge change. We are writing the JavaScript file. Inside the JavaScript, we are writing the HTML. And this HTML is entirely changed. This is called JSX. So at the end, you are writing what? You are writing the JSX. Make sense? You are writing the JSX. So it means for React.js, the first important thing is view is very important thing. So view is very important. View means whatever you are seeing is very important. That's why they divide an application into small components. And inside a component, when we're talking about the component is at the end is a JavaScript file. And inside the JavaScript, you are writing a JSX. JSX is a JavaScript and XML, right? So it means they have created their own tags. They have created their own language to create a tag. So forget about the HTML. But it does not mean you need to forget the HTML. JSX is entirely using 99%, somehow 98 or 99% syntax of HTML. So it is using 99% syntax of HTML. So why they are not using HTML? Because HTML is not strict. It means if you forget any tag, HTML would not generate any error. But JSX internally is a JavaScript. Internally is a JavaScript. It look like an HTML, but internally it is a JavaScript. Why it is look like an HTML? Because it use XML. So they write XML tags, which is 99% same like HTML tag, but internally it is converted into the JavaScript. So if you forget to close a tag, it will generate an error. So it is, you can say JSX is a strict HTML, right? So it means you are writing a JavaScript, and inside the JavaScript, you are actually writing the JSX stuff. Sandeep is asking, is it XHTML? No. XHTML is a dinosaur. It's gone. JSX is entirely a new stuff that is created by the Facebook in a React. So they have created their own way of writing HTML. Make sense? Guys, somebody mic is on. Okay. So the point number one is React concentration is to create a view and divide a view into small components. And we are creating a component, right? And we know React is built by the Facebook, and Facebook right now using this React for their front end side. And Instagram is also using it. So if we just move to this thing, this diagram. So Flipkart, PayPal, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, these all are on the React right now. Angular is used by the HBO, Google, because it's a Google product. Hotstar, BMW, Microsoft, Nike is using this. Vue is using by the Alibaba, because Vue is made on China, right? It is made on the China. So, I mean, the developers, most of them are from the China. That's why Alibaba is from the China. MI is from the China. So most of the Chinese thing is built on the Vue because they want to opt this thing, right? I hope you understand this thing. So far we understand what is React, and we understand React has the first absolute feature is that is the component based development, right? So the first feature we understand, it is doing this component based development. Now the next feature we understand, that is it has the JSX support. It means everything through a JSX, JavaScript and XML. and it is a library. So I'm just writing the crux. So it is just a library, it is not a framework. So learning curve is less. So when we talk about the learning curve is less, because as a HTML and JavaScript you can start with, right? So that's why the learning curve is less, very less, right? And it uses something called virtual DOM. We will talk about later on what is virtual DOM. So because in JavaScript we use the DOM, document object model. We use the document.getElementById, window.something. So these are the DOM, but it uses the virtual DOM. So what exactly the virtual DOM, why it is needed? The answer is, when we are making our website, we are actually dividing our website into small components, right? So these are the components, small components. So we are actually dividing our website into small components, right? And when we have the small components, so the point is we engage all the components by Webpack, and Webpack actually produce a page, right? So at the end we have the page, but initially we are building the components. When we are building a component, so component has their own tree, right? It has its own tree because it has the div has the p has the span. So it has their own small tree. But when we're talking about the pure HTML stuff, because HTML start with the HTML tag and it is end with the HTML tag. But when we talk about the component, all are components, small divs, right? They have written in a different JS files. So these all small div has their own small tree, right? They all have their small tree. Compared to a giant tree means, because in pure HTML stuff, you start with an HTML tag, so it has the body tag can have a div tag, it can have nested div tag, it has again nested div tag, it has a p tag, it has a span tag inside it. So it means the tree is huge. So it means whenever you do any modification, the entire trees get shaked. Important point is the entire trees get shaked. But your components are small components. So it means whenever you make a changes, it is only affect that component. It would not affect the entire page. This is the important thing. When you make a change, it is affected only the particular component. It would not affect on the entire page. Makes sense? So it means if you've done some changes here, so suppose you have x variable and you does x++, so it will affect only this component. So it means this component has their own tree, and only this tree is get re-render. This tree is get re-render, not the entire tree is get re-render. I hope you understand, all of you understand this thing. So we can say by the performance wise, the component is making the small tree, and because it is making the small tree, so it would not create the bigger tree, right? So we can think about your entire application is divided into the small trees. I hope everyone understand the meaning of the tree here, right? If any questions, so you can raise this point. So it means the point number one is, if your application has very small tree, so when you does some changes, so it will, I am using a word, it will patch the change. Remember this word, it will patch the change. It would not change the entire page, right? It would not change it, the entire thing. So for me, I just want to fit a picture on your mind. It is like we can use a word called, for example, I use a word called thali. You know the word called thali, right? Food thali, right? So when you see any thali like this, right? So this thali has, you can think about it, small components. So these all small bowls is like a small components. So if anything, I mean any, I just go back because I hope it is get clicked. So I just do right click, open image in a new tab. Right. So this is, so think about these all small bowls are basically like a small components, and this bigger thali is like a page, right? It's like a page. So for example, if you want to replace this rice, with some brown rice, right? So you can change it. So you need to just remove, or you need to just replace this bowl instead of replacing the whole thali. Make sense? So instead of replacing the whole thali, you are actually replacing the bowl. Make sense? So it means you are replacing the component. It means you are replacing the chunk of component. Make sense? That's why this is the agenda of React says you are actually dividing your application into small components, and small component has small tree. So it means when you make any changes, so it will affect only this tree. Now the point number one is how they identify there are some replacements. Think about you are on a restaurant, you are eating this thali, right? And there is a guy who is a waiter who is actually watching this thali. It means if anything is less in your thali, for example, this curd is less, so it fill this thing, right? So this guy is actually first deliver this thali to you, hand it over to you, you start eating. When you're eating it, so it will come back and just see, is this curd is there or not? So it means it has the first image, it has the first image of full thali, right? And then after some moment of time, it has a half thali image, right? Half thali means it means you eat something. So it will in their mind, it will compare the full thali and half thali image. So it means it is comparing it, and it find out. It means I'm just telling how the mind is working. It compare it how the full thali and half thali is get changed. It means there is a change, right? There is a change. So it means just put some values it here. It means just re-render it. It means when it is putting it, it means it is re-rendering it. So I'm just telling the intelligence of React. React has so many components. So React does not do re-rendering until it has the two copies. It maintains two copies. It means when it create a tree, it has the older tree. Remember, it has the older tree. Older tree has the initial values, right? When you do some changes, there is a change in a new tree. For example, this areas get changed. So it will compare this area with this area. So it is comparing old tree with a new tree. So it has a diff. When there's a diff, then it will patch the changes. It will patch the changes on the page. It will patch the changes on the page. Make sense? So it means it know where to be changed. So it know where to be changed. So it's the story is same. It is like the waiter knows which bowl has to be filled. It means if the curd is missing, if rice is missing, then I will fill it. So it means it just checking it, the tree and find out which part is missing. And whatever the part is missing, it will patching it. It would not replace the thali. It is just patching it. I hope everyone understand this point. What do you understand by the virtual DOM? Makes sense? So this is the way out to use the virtual DOM thing. So the point, we are moving back to our point table. We know the component based development. So if anyone is asking where, I mean, it means React is doing what sort of thing? React is doing the component based development. It is doing the JSX stuff. It is doing the library stuff. It has the less learning curve. It has the virtual DOM. So virtual DOM is creating small tree. So Bhavya asking it check all parts of tree. Yes, that's a, if you just go back to this image, and I told you there is a waiter. So that waiter is like an observer, which is actually observing the thali. So it means React is also having the observer behind the scene, which is actually checking which tree has a change. I mean, which component has a change. So it has a change, so compare it and patch it. So remember this thing. So it is actually checking where is the change. So it means it is checking the entire page. In page, there is a component. So it means it is scanning the page. It has the component. If the component is change, it means how it find out the change, because it has the old tree and it has the new tree. If there is a difference, then it will patch the changes. Make sense? So how this is working? So Ritu is asking that is how every small component communicate with each other. We will see. This is later on stage. When we start writing our components, so the first absolute thing is how to create components. First we create components. Once we create a components, then tie up the components and make a page. Once this thing is done, then we start how to communicate between the components. Make sense? So it is a later on state. Right. So this is entirely different mentality to build everything, but it is very, very good and recommended. So if you create any website, I recommend start with the React. Do not use with pure HTML. Do not use pure CSS. Use React, right? So because when you are writing with a React, because you have the small component, so you can replace your component any moment of time. You can change the design of component any moment of time. So instead of looking up the entire page, you can just work on a component. That's why the maintenance is pretty much easier. I hope everyone understands this thing. Everyone know why we are learning this React. I hope everyone has this point why the React is essential for us. So React started this feature that is called component-based development, that is actually invented by the React, right? This is the monopoly of the React, and because of React started this thing, that's why Angular come in 2016 and copy the same concept and build this thing. Then the 2018, the same story is done by the Vue.js. That's why there is a monopoly of the React, because React actually give a birth to the component-based development in 2015. So that's why from 2015 component-based development are born, and because they are born, so they love React. That's why the React is popular, right? So I hope you understand this thing. Now we start the stuff here, and you can also see this thing, that is the thing called Google Trends, and in Google Trends you can see the graph of React. So if you type React, and if you type the graph of Angular, so this is the graph of Angular, and if you type the graph of Vue.js, so this is the Vue.js graph. So you have the comparison. It means this Google Trend, if you know, this Google Trend is basically saying, it is showing the trend. It means how much search or how much interest people have. So blue is your React, red is your Angular, and yellow is your Vue.js, right? Makes sense. So this is how the market is going on. Satish asking, CSS is also divided into small style sheets for components. Yes, of course. So it means you can divide CSS in a small components. So it means per component there is a CSS. And you can have also the choice to create a one CSS if the CSS is common among all the components. So you can have a one CSS which is common among all the components, or you can have a component specific CSS also. Make sense? I hope guys, everyone understand, everyone have the point why we use this React stuff, right? So time to move on. I mean, time to start the coding. So Satish is asking, is we can do thing using React? You are saying, Satish, I think you are saying dividing a CSS. Yes, of course, CSS is like this. If you, I just show you one example, like it has this app.css, and this is app is a component. So this is a previous batch code. So app.js it has. So if you just see, this is an app.js, and it is a component code. We will see what is the component code, and it has a render. Render has this. If you just see, this is an HTML stuff, and this HTML stuff we have written inside the render function, and this div is basically like JSX stuff, right? And this is a CSS of this app dot, right? So app.js has this app.css. Make sense? So this is all thing is done by this React. So there are huge learning for the first program, right? So we start with the first program. So guys, let's start with the first absolute need. I just do Control C, right? I just go to the clear section. The first absolute need for React. So please note it down what you need in your machine to use with the React. So the first absolute need is you need Node.js in your machine. That is absolutely needed. So must have Node.js in your machine. So this, if you install the Node.js, so it will help us when we are learning the Node.js. So go to this nodejs.org and download 12.18. This is the recommended, and this is 14.8.3. When you use 14.8.3, this is the latest one, right? So it's all up to you. So I am recommending 12.18.3 because it's a stable one, right? So you need to just click on it, and it is install it, right? So I'm not installing it because I already installed this thing. So you need to just go to this pkg file. This is the installer file for my machine because I'm using a Mac. If you're using Windows, so it would be an exe or MSI file. Make sense? So once it is get downloaded and get installed, the installation is pretty much easy. Just double click and it will install. So just do next. Do not change it anything. Once it is get installed, open your DOS. So I am opening my DOS. That is terminal for me, right? So that is terminal for me. Make sense? Once this terminal is get opened up here, or you can use CMD, right? So you will write here the thing called node. So it will show you node. So this is a node prompt. If you see, this is a node prompt. So I think Satish is clicking on the node because Satish might be installed the node. So it is saying when I click on the Node.js app, it will show. So it is like this, Satish, I hope. It is like this prompt will be show. And from here you can write a code, right? So it means you have the node in your machine if you have Node.js prompt. Make sense? So I just do Control C. I just come back to the node, and I just want to show you node or hyphen version. So when you write this thing, okay, node hyphen version it is. So it will show version 13.9. So it is showing 13.9 in my machine. And if you write npm hyphen version, so it will show you npm version. So 6.9.0 I have. Makes sense. So the point number one for you all of you guys, when you install Node, you have the npm is get installed. Npm is what? Npm is Node Package Manager. So Node Package Manager is basically it's a downloader for modules. So it means if you want to download any modules from the internet, you use npm, right? So when you install Node, you have the npm. Make sense? So npm is Node Package Manager. Through this, you can install the Node packages in your machine. So when you install a React itself is a package, and that package is built on Node, right? So React is a package which is built on a Node. That's why you need to install Node first. So once you have the Node, you have the npm, and through npm you can install the React. Without this, you cannot install it. Make sense? Is this clear, guys? I hope everyone understand. Yogesh is sending some picture. Yep, Yogesh, I think you have the older version, but it will work, no issues. So you have this Node and then npm. Bharatwaj is asking what I need to explain. You are asking, I think, Node and npm. So think about Node is basically a runtime environment to building applications, right? Through this, you can build an application. When we talk about the React can be installed through a Node. So to installing a React, you need a Node in your machine. And because you have the Node, so you have the npm in your machine, right? So if you have Node in your machine, then you have the npm. And through npm, you can install this React. So React is what? It is a package. And this package is where? This package is on the npm. This package is where? It is on the npm. So you can see this thing. You can see this thing from the browser. Just go to the browser and type here npmjs.com. When you type this npmjs.com, then you are here and type create React, right? This is the name of the package. I remember this thing. So create React app. This is the name of a package. When you just Google it, this is the package name you will see, right? So when I click it here, you will see this thing is coming from npm. Make sense? And it's asking npm install create React app. Make sense? So I can install it, and it is a huge number of download it has. Make sense? So the point number one is when you're using a Node, you have the npm, and through npm you can install this create React app, and there is a command to install it, that is npm install create React app. Make sense? I hope everyone understand this thing. So Yash is saying, Yash, do you have the version? I mean, if you type Node and then space, if you just type Node and press enter, so you will see there is a Node. Then you can do a Control-C and then Node ---- version. So okay, because the point is, Abhishek, you type Node first, so you're on a Node prompt. So that's the problem. So guys, whosoever is going to check this, you have the Node or not, check in this way, guys. Check in this way. You never write Node first. If you write Node, you are in this shell. This is a shell, right? You cannot type anything else. You can only type the JavaScript here. So remember this point. So I do Control-C twice. So when I do this Control-C twice, so I am on this prompt, right? I am not in this greater than sign. So I am in this prompt, then I am able to write Node ---- version. Make sense? Then it will show you the version. If this is showing you bad command, so it means you do not have the Node. So you need to install it. Make sense? Then if you type npm ---- version, this will work. Okay guys, so Abhishek, you are on Node prompt. That's why you are not able to see the Node version. So you need to quit back to the Node prompt to the command prompt by pressing Control-C. I hope guys, this thing is clear. So Siddiq is asking about how to update a node. To update a node, you need to reinstall it. You can only update the npm, right? So you need to reinstall it, right? So just go there and download a new version and install it. It will get updated. Bharadwaj is asking how this command prompt is coming. So just go to your run menu, window R if you press, if you're on a Windows. So window R and then CMD, type CMD there, right? And here in my machine, I have the terminal because I'm using different operating system. So I have the terminal. So that terminal will be getting on. So in case of Windows, just go to the CMD, just press Window R. The run menu will be open and type CMD there. Then you are on a command prompt. Right. So for single is asking hyperterminal is better or CMD. Right now for us CMD is better. No, nothing we needed. Hyperterminal. And Akshat asking there is also NPX. Right. Akshat, there is a difference between NPM and NPX. If you are using NPM more than 5.0, so you have the NPX by default in your machine. So the latest name of NPM is NPX. Right. So you can use NPX. So there is no huge difference. It is just a NPM more than 5.0 is become NPX. Make sense, Akshat? So that's a new name to the NPM. Make sense? Now the point is, guys, create React app. When we talking about the create React app is basically this is actually used to use the React thing. So React package will become in our machine. That's why we need to install the create React app. Bharatwaj asking how to install Node. It is pretty much simple, Bharatwaj. You need to just go to the nodejs.org and just download it. Just go there, nodejs.org, just download it. That's it. And once you download it, just do next. It would be get installed. Right. I hope this thing is clear. After this, you need to check it. You have the node or not by using this command. Makes sense. Now the point is, guys, you need to install the create React app. So create React app, I told you, this is basically used to have the package in your machine. That package is for making the React application. So to making a React application, you need to install the create React app. How you will install it? You need to note it down. npm install create React app -g. -g means global, right? And here I am also writing sudo. Sudo is only used when you are on Linux. Like I'm on a Linux machines because Mac is entirely using the Linux things. So that's why I need a sudo, right? For a super user rights. So sudo is for only for Linux one. npm, you can use npx in place of, if you have the latest version, no issues, either npm or either npx. I stand for install. So you're installing it. What you're installing create React app. So you are installing create React app. That is a package which you're installing. -g means globally. So it means it is installed globally in my machine. I can access it from any drive. That's a one-time job you need to do. That's a one-time job, right? First time you will do it. So you need to just press an enter and this will be get installed. I already installed it just to save the time. So you need to just click and install it. I hope, guys, this thing is clear. Make sense? Ayush is showing create React app, no such file or directory open. So Ayush, you have node, you have npm, you have net is coming, no such file directory is coming. When if you just Ayush, if you just search this word enet, it is only come when you have fluctuating internet connection, right? So it means if you're installing it, your internet connection is fluctuating in between, then this will problem. Or there are some chances if some files are logged by your operating system. So either you can try it with admin rights. So there is an option of admin run as administrator in your Windows machine. So you can try it, your command prompt run as administrator and then run it. Like in my machine, I need to write sudo. Then it will give a right to me. So Yash is saying, does this makes a new project? It is not making a new project. It is actually installing a create React app command. Through this, you can create a new project, right? So this is a command to create a new project, right? So it is not going to create any project. This command is get installed in your machine. Now through this command, you can create a new project. So Bharadwaj is asking, so Bharadwaj, it's all up to your choice. Either you want to use a stable release or either you want to use a new release, no issues at all. But when you're doing a serious development, I mean, you are working for some project for some customers, so I'm always recommending use a stable release. Do not use a new release. There are problems. New release can have the bugs. New release has less documentation over the internet. Make sense? Right. So guys, first of all, right now we just understand the steps, and whatever is not installing in your machine, just send the queries on your WhatsApp group after the class. Right. There is a Kajal ma'am who will help you on this. Right. So instead of writing, I'm checking your installation thing, because there are chances if you have a firewall or if you have a free antivirus that would not allow you to install it. So some moment of time you need to just stop these free things, right? Then you need to install it, right? So otherwise, if your system is not disturbed at all, it would be installed very smoothly. So Karan is asking why we use G is for global, right? Shreya is also giving an answer. It's for global. It means you're installing globally, so you can access it anywhere. I mean, C drive, D drive, E drive, anywhere. Makes sense, guys? I hope everyone understand this thing. So far, so good. We understand this stuff. npm install create react app -g. Now it's time to start our first project and to understand what it does, this command, right? So I already installed it, so I just skip this thing. I move back to my project area, right? And I am moving back to our project, which we have already created for JavaScript learning, BVP full stack, right? This is our project. So I am here. So we have done this greet app thing kind. Now we are going to creating a create react app stuff. So to creating a create react stuff, go to the view and there is a terminal inside it. So this terminal is get open. So this is a terminal. This is inbuilt in your VS Code, right? So from here, just type this command, create react app and name of your project which you want to build. So I'm saying first react app. This is the name of the project I want to build, and then press enter. Right. So create react app and first react app. Make sense? So this is the way out. Create react app, first react app. It means create react app is used to create a react app. I hope Bhradwaj, I am actually going slow. I think you are trying the same things on the machine. That's why it seems like a fast. So do not try it right now, because all the videos will be available, right? So because if I just go when you install it, then I will wait. So because we have limited time, right? And we need to cover a lot of things. So just guys, right now, just see the stuff and then later on try this stuff, right? And when you have an issue, there is a WhatsApp group. Always communicate on the WhatsApp group. So I'm just repeating the commands. The commands are, I'm just writing it, what commands I have done. So the installation step is pretty much simple. I start with the thing install node. That's the first step, right? So that's the first thing we have done. Once this thing is done, open a terminal. Second step is open a terminal. So open a CMD or either terminal, right? So I open this thing. Once it is open, type npm install create react app -g. That's the thing. That's the third step. Once you've done this thing, then the final step. The final step says create react app, and then you need to specify name of the project. Guys, mic is open. Somebody mic is open. So create react app, name of the project. That's it. These are the commands which I have used. Make sense? So this command is repetitive one, because whenever you create a project, you need this thing. So this project is ready and it is saying just start and run this project, right? So the project is get ready right now. I hope guys, everyone understand the command. So only the two commands I have used. That's it. So now the point is, I have the project ready. Now what is inside the project? Just see. So it is the project. This is the first React app. It is get created. So this is get created and it has a lot of stuff, right? So project is there. right? And this project, what you have inside this project, there are plenty of things. So we start with this. So guys, my point is just right now, just concentrate on the things. Do not try this thing because the video will be available to all of you. Then you can try it, right? So if you try this time, this moment of time, it is impossible to see your screenshots and then figure it out and giving the training. So it will lag our training, right? So we'll miss a lot of things. That's why the recommendation is after the class WhatsApp group and also see the videos. So just note down the steps only. Now the point is, once it is get installed, once it is installed in through -g, right? It is get installed globally. And now when we use this command, so we can use it anywhere, and it is creating what? It is creating our project. So it is creating our project, right? Make sense? So it is installed it here. Our project we have right now. So Abhishek is saying we can make another folder and work there. Definitely, you can create, Abhishek, anywhere you can create a folder, anywhere you can work on it, right? It's not. It means you can create on any D drive, and in a D drive just type create React app. Make sense? Karan is asking in packet.json. We are right now not talking about the packet.json. We will see what exactly this packet.json stuff. Make sense? So first React app, this is the name of the project. So this is the important point, you need to note it down. Name of the project, right? And public is basically a folder which contain a HTML, right? Plus global CSS, any global CSS if you want to use. So HTML means a page. I will use a word called it has a page. The global CSS, it has images if you want, so images would be here. Fonts if you want, so font would be here, right? So all of these stuff would be in the public folder, right? So if I open this public folder, you will see it has these stuff. So icon, HTML, images, right? And there is a file called manifest.json and robots.txt. The need of this, when you use manifest.json, so it means you want to build an application which can work on mobile phones also. It means that would be a PWA application, right? So React support this thing also, progressive web apps. Make sense? So if you want to build any progressive web apps, it means progressive web apps means it is a web app, but it will behave like a mobile app. That is the manifest.json file is there. So if you open this file, it has the icon stuff, it has the portrait, landscape, these kind of stuff related to the mobile, right? Robots.txt is basically when you put this application on a server side, so it will block the IP. So if you want some IP can be blocked, so you can block it by using this robot.txt. So this is all inside this public folder, right? Now we are moving to the next thing, that is Src folder. So this Src folder, if you use this Src folder, Src contains your source code. So whatever the source code you have, it would be here, right? So what I will do, I just go in the code window because I need to just hide the terminal. So the text would not be get conflicted. So just I hide it. Right, so I just hide it. So I told you, like Chetan is asking, favorite icon is by default there, right? Chetan, I have not created this thing. It is already there. So favorite icon they have provided, index.html they have provided, logo they have provided, manifest.json they have provided, robot.txt they have provided. So if you just see manifest file, so manifest file, it has the feature related to the mobile thing. Because mobile apps is installed in your machine, I mean in your phone. So when it is get installed in your phone, so what kind of icon it has? So name of your mobile application, name of your icons, right? It has a thing called display. It means where it would be get display. Which one is the first URL of this page? What is the background color of when it is opening in a mobile? So that information is the manifest.json. When we talk about the robots, so robots says user agent and disallow. It is saying what sort of IP you want to block. It means you don't want some other, I mean, for example, you want, there would not be any IP coming from the Pakistan region. I want to block those IPs, so I can block it from here, right? This is the robot.txt, right? So when you put on a server will ask what sort of things you want to block, so we can disallow those things. That is to robot.txt. I hope this thing is clear. Src is entirely for your source code. It means you can think about your all component code. All your component code will be go here. So all of your component code will be inside this. Make sense? Git ignore, its name says when you put every code in a Git, so what sort of files would not be go in a Git? So Git ignore says these set of files would not be go inside, I mean on the Git. For example, Git is basically used to placing your source code, right? So you're placing your source code, but some of the files you don't want to place it. So what are those some of the files which you don't want to place it? For example, you have a file called node modules, this one, this node modules. You don't want to place this file, right? So node modules is basically contain the libraries which is actually installed when you install React. So when you install the React thing, the libraries, it has the node module. So these library you don't want to install on a Git. So Git ignore has the information, do not place node modules on a Git. So Ritik is asking, we need to specify robot.txt. It has the IPs. You need to specify the IP which you want to block, right? So you need to specify. So that's why it has something called disallow, and you need to specify the list of IPs, comma separated. So you can disallow those IPs. Make sense? So I hope Git ignore you understand, guys. So if I open this Git ignore file, it will give you more insight. So you will see Git ignore says node modules never go, right? Testing thing never go on a server. Build folder never go. I mean, these things would not be go on a Git. So these files never go. So that's why there's a Git ignore. So Git is creating this thing because all of this code is coming from the Git. Packet.json is a very important file. It contains the meta information of your project. So it contains the meta information of your project. So that meta information is the project name, project version, and project dependencies. It means your project is using which kind of libraries. So all the library dependency would be here, right? So all this information inside your packet.json. Make sense? Package.log.json is only required when you are working on a collaboration mode. It means you are working on a team, then it is required, right? Packet.log.json. So right now we are not working in a collaboration mode. So I just skipped this thing right now. README is basically to understand all this stuff. There is a README file. It means how you run this code. It has this README stuff. Make sense? So Abhishek, I am recommending do not change manifest.json until you not know PWA, right? So once you are very, very good in HTML and CSS stuff and React stuff and JavaScript stuff, then think about the PWA. PWA is entirely a different technology. It is basically used to run your web application like a mobile app, right? So it is actually a web app, but it will behave like a mobile app. So it means you can access GPS, you can access camera, you can access mic, you can install the application. It can work on offline. These all features is provided by the PWA. React has a support of PWA. Make sense? I hope everyone understand this whole structure, right? So Bhavya asking, README contain how you can run your code, right? How you can run your code, how you can test your code. So it has a set of commands, how you can use this project. So how you can use this project, it is written inside the README file. So even you can check this file, double clicking it. So it will, if you just see this here, so it will just give you some links. It is saying npm start is used to start your application. Npm test is for testing purpose. So it is just telling you build is for making a build. So you can put it on a server, eject if you want to eject this application, because when you run it, it is inject. So it is get ejected. So you can have these commands, and these are some links for the React documentation. So maybe if you want to learn the documentation, so you have the links. So that's why it is for the end user purpose. I mean, end user purpose means end developer. So developer can read this file. Makes sense? So Chetan is asking, README is same like a Git, because all the code is coming from the Git, right? It is coming from the Git. I hope everyone understand this folder structure. That is really important, right? Now, what facility is provided by the React? It means when you install this, the number one question must be in your mind, that is, what sort of facilities it is providing. So React says when you install this React thing, React give you Webpack. It has the Webpack inside it. Webpack has the server inside it. So now there is no need of live server. We are using right click and live server. There is no need. It has the own server. It has a feature of testing. So you can test your code. It has a feature of building your project. Building means when you are building your application, you're dividing everything in a components, right? And then you assemble it. So it means you're building it. So build feature it has inside it. It has the React library. It has a React library, right? So through React library, you can build components. Make sense? You can build components. So all this stuff, it is providing you, and you are, of course, you are using a new JavaScript, ECMA 8 or ECMA 9 or ECMA 6, right? But might be there are chances when you're running this code, your browser is outdated, right? Your browser is outdated. So when you're writing a new code, how this new code is converted into that code that is understood by the browser. Might be a browser is on, let's say, on ECMA 5, for example, and you are writing a code as a developer in a new version. So your code is get converted into the lower version. This thing is called, guys, transpiling. This thing is called transpile. It means transpile means higher version to lower version. It is get converted, and it is done by the Babel.js. If you heard about this name. So Babel.js is basically a transpiler. Right now they are using a word called compiler, but initially it is a transpiler because it is downgraded, right? And this Babel is also coming in the React. So React provide you Webpack, it provide you library. Webpack has server, testing, build, all this criteria. For testing, they are using Jest. So they have the framework Jest for doing the testing stuff. So you can do the testing of each component. So it means whatever you will build, it will be get tested. And it has a transpiling feature with the Babel. So a lot of stuff they have provided inside this project. So Nifty is asking, VS Code is automatically integrated with React.js. No, it is not automatically. We are actually creating inside the VS Code. If you know, I use this thing that is terminal I open. So I just vanish this thing and I just show you. I open this terminal, right? And this terminal, I open this folder, right? First React app. So if you just see here, I am from where I am just running this command here. Here it is. So if you just see, I am on the BVP full stack, and from here I just run. So that's why the folders get created, because I am in the BVP full stack. I hope you understand, because I am inside this folder, then I create it, so that folder is automatically come inside this. Make sense? So if you want that VS Code will help me when I'm writing a React, then go to the extensions. And inside the extension, you can have the React lot of extension. So like React native tools, React snippets. So you can install these kind of things. So it will help you when you're writing it. So it will give you some snippets to help you, right? So we will install later on based on the need. Now the point is we have the project setup. I mean, we are ready with the project. Now we will just test, is this project what is given by in this bigger project. So I just write clear, right? So I just go inside this project, that is CD. CD is for change directory, first React app. Right now where I am, first React app, right? And from here I just type command called npm start. This is a command to start your React project. So when I do npm start, it is going to start your React project. So if you just see closely, it is running React script. Then it is starting the developer server, and now it is running the server, and it is running this thing. And if you just see here, it is running the page, right? So this page is get run, right? And this is the home page they have created. Make sense? I hope guys you understand this thing. So they have given you a first default page. So we are able to see they have given us a first default page, and they have their own server inside it by using Webpack. Make sense, guys? Now the point is where this code is written. I mean, where, just go back here, where this code is written. Make sense? So we are going to see this code. Sandeep, yarn start also work. Yes, yarn and npm are the cousins, right? But two different cousins like Corav and Pandav, right? So yarn is created by the React. I mean, the Facebook created yarn. npm is created by the Mozilla, right? So because React is popular, so that's why the Facebook want their own package manager. They want their own package manager. That's why they have created yarn. But npm is a big one. So it is a when we're talking about the JavaScript packages, it is a big brother of JavaScript packages. That's why npm is in very much in trend because npm has a lot of packages. Gunjan, if you think about how the React is coming, it is coming from the npm. So npm contain the packages, right? A lot of packages here. So if you want to use Angular, you want to use React, you want to use Vue, you want to use a lot of other things like Express, EJS. There are a lot of plenty of things are there. All of them are stored where? On npm, right? So that's why npm is a repository of all the packages. Make sense? That's why we are using npm. And same like npm, the yarn is doing the same stuff. But npm is the bigger one. It has a lot of packages compared to the yarn. That's why we are using npm. And even in Node, we are using this thing. How I start the project, I just type npm start. So I just go to the folder and then type npm start. So just go to the first React app by using cd, first React app, and then type npm start. Make sense? I hope, Gunjan, you understand why we are using npm. So where we learn this project thing. Now we will see where this code is written actually. So the most important point, which I am not open yet, it is the Src. So if you just go to the Src, there is a thing called app.js. App represent application, right? App represent application. And inside this application, if you just see, they have written a lot of code, right? So what I will do, I just simply delete this code. So here I am creating my own function. And if you just see, this is the code you already familiar. You know the JavaScript, so I'm writing the JavaScript, right? And here, this JavaScript it is an app. It's just a function, nothing else. And in React terminology, it is a component. In a React terminology, it is a component. So we are creating a component function app. So in JavaScript term, it is just a function. So we are creating a function, and it is going to be written what? It is going to be written. Let's say what I'm going to type. So I'm typing h1. H1 is what? It's a HTML, but it is a JSX. Right, it is a JSX, and I'm saying hello React. So I'm writing hello React, and I just save it. When I save it, it will give the changes immediately. Make sense? Hello React is coming. Rest of the code I deleted. Make sense? So we understand actually it is triggering this app. It is triggering what? It is triggering this app. So now this app is triggered by whom? It means who is calling this app? Who is calling this app, right? So right now I'm just talking about this, only this line, 3 lines, 5, 6, 7. We have created app and we want to trigger it. I mean, I want to call this app. Index.js is a file who is responsible to call it. So this is the call, right? This is a call. So when you're writing app, so it means because React main criteria is to build components. Component is for the view. Component is for the view. And when we are creating a view, views is made up of HTML. That's why they have created a syntax like HTML. So that's why when you're writing app like this, it is behind the scene, it is calling like this. Because app at the end is a function. So when you're writing this, it is doing this. But what they want you can work like an HTML. That's why they have given the syntax app. Now the point is how this index.js is talking to this app.js. How this index.js is talking to this app.js. So when you write this app tag, when you're writing this app tag, so this app is import from this. So import app, I mean import this function from where? From ./app. ./app means go to the current folder. Dot means current folder. Go to the current folder. Current folder is Src, and pick this app. Pick this app.js, right? So we are importing. So it is more like if you are coming from a C background, it is more like hash include, right? If you're coming from a Java, you already know there is something called import. So we're importing this. So we are importing app. I mean, we are importing this file, and from this file, we are borrowing what? We are borrowing this function, right? So we borrow this function, and when we borrow this function, we have this app, right? So we're calling it. So this is internally it is calling a function. So it is call a function. When we call this function, that function we know this function is returning what? This is returning h1. This function is returning h1. So this h1 is embedded here. So this means it means on runtime this line is get removed, and this is embedded here. So h1 is get embedded here, right? Make sense, guys? So this h1 is get embedded here, and now this h1 must be on HTML page. So we have this HTML page. This is the index.html, right? And in this index.html, we have something called root. Root is a div, right? So, and it is a div ID. So in HTML, they have created div ID root. So if you open it, you will see inside this index.html, we have something. So I just clear out. So it has something called div, right? In line number 31, it has div ID root, and index.js. If we just move back to index.js, it is picking document.getElement by ID. It's picking the root, and root is calling the app. So app is giving the JSX, and that JSX is added inside this, right? So it means whatever the JSX, I mean the H1, right? JSX is what? It's an H1. H1 is coming up, and H1 is embedding inside the root. So it means behind the scene, it is doing div, and then div, and it has some ID. That is a root, and inside it, it will place the H1. That's the beauty of Webpack, right? So we are making a component only, and the integration is done by this. So Bhavya is asking how root is calling app. It is pretty much easy. Index.html is a HTML which has, if you just open it, it has something called, if you open index.html, you have div ID root, right? So it has div ID root. So it has the div ID root, and this root we are using in index.html, index.js. How we are using it? By using document.getElement by ID. So document.getElement by ID is picking root. I hope this thing you understand. And there is a function called render, and if you just English to Hindi, render is basically to painting it, right? It is going to paint it. It is what is going to, it is going to print. It is going to paint app. So app contain what? App contain h1. So it is returning h1. So h1 is get painted under the root, right? Under the root. So root is what? It's a div. So inside div, it is writing the h1. I hope Bhavya, you understand this thing, how root is calling this app. So root is calling this app by using function called render, and inside render we are calling this app. Make sense? Bharatwaj is asking how to run local server in a browser. You are running by using npm start, right? When you are writing npm start, it is running the local server. Make sense? I hope this thing is clear, guys. Gunjan, just park right now the react.strict mode, because it's not right time to tell you, because we are just in a very beginning stage. Once we are able to create our own components, because I just show you the existing code right now. So when we clean up this code, I just delete all of this code and we start writing our own code, right? Then we understand why this React has written this code. That moment of time we will talk about the strict mode. Make sense? Then we understand what exactly the strict mode is doing. Right. Any other question, guys? Because right now in a first half we understand the React kickstart now we have, and now we are going to create our first application with the React. Gunjan is asking, explain app. This Gunjan app is a component which is provided by the React. So because React everything is a component, so it create an app component. So it is the first example component they have provided. So app is a component, and component is at the end is a function. So we create a component, and that component is returning a JSX. JSX is converted into the HTML at the runtime, right? Make sense? Vikas is asking what is the name of the first file that will run. No name. It is actually, because when we're talking about the thing, we are actually writing this command npm start. Now there is a suspense how this npm start is working. I will open this suspense in a second half because it's already time is going to be up. So right now npm start does everything. It is actually running index.html behind the scene, and index.html is running index.js, and index.js is running app.js. Make sense? So Siddiqui is asking how .app is loading only JS file, because Siddiqui, we are on the Src folder. Src, when you use in Src, you have only two kind of files. Either you have JS, either you have CSS. And when you are using, if you just see this syntax closely, when using import with from, it is always with JS. It always with the JS. When you use CSS, you use .css directly, not from, right? So that's why it is giving a preference to the JS. Make sense? Is this clear? That's why when you're using app, it is picking the JS because it is with a from, and through from we are loading the JS. Without from we are loading the CSS. So Yogesh is starting where to start. Just a minute. npm start. Yogesh, you must be in a folder where you have generated, right? So you must be in this folder. So you need to just go like this. Because why you are getting the error? Because you are directly trying this npm start, right? So if I am on a BVP full stack, right now I'm not in the BVP full stack, I must be in a first React tab. So if I try this thing, the same error, whatever you are facing, I am facing the same error. So I'm just simulating it. So this error would not become if you just go to that folder where you generated. So just go to this folder and then try npm start. Make sense?
Okay, sir.
So Aditya is giving some error, showing some error. I am getting when installing rollback failed npm session. So try with admin rights, right? Aditya, try with right click run as administrator and then try it. So those who are facing issue in a create React app, those show those issues on a on your WhatsApp, and Kajal ma'am is there. And if you're facing the issues, I mean, the things are not installed, so she will help you on installation. Just install the team viewer in your machine, right? So she will access your machine and then she can install it on behalf of you, right? Because the chances, because from my past experience, why this installation not happen because of the some rights issues. I mean, your machine does not provide you some rights. And this is only happen most of the time when you have the unwanted firewalls are on, unwanted free antivirus are there, right? So they stop it, right? So they do not allow you to install it. Make sense? So what command, Shagun, you are trying when this error is coming? So far I am winding up this session, right, for React point of view, and I am starting with a doubt session. So whatever the doubts you are facing, just telling me what sort of doubts. So Satish, the CSS would not be right with the help of React. Only the JS part or HTML part would be right with the help of things. CSS remains same. Okay. Yep. Any other question, guys? Gunjan is asking, yes, definitely create React app you can use with a terminal. I mean, you can use it with a VS Code, either you can use it from the command prompt, both are fine, no issues.
Sir, actually I have a problem when I'm trying to write this command on terminal of VS Code, it shows the following error. Like it shows file not found, item not found exception.
If you are getting enonet error, if it is coming enonet, so it is fluctuation of internet.
No, sir. It shows that item not found exception. The term create React app is not recognized as the name of command-led function script file.
So the point is, it is not properly installed. It means when you do -g command, I mean npm install create React app -g, that is not installed properly. So it means your create React app is not installed. Right. So you need to first install correctly the create React app. Right. That's why it is not working. Make sense? So Ritik is asking npm start. Ritik, it is just to start your application, right? And how internally it is working, we will discuss this thing in a second half. How this npm start is working, right? Internally. So just right now, you just understand when you write npm start, it will trigger your application. It will start your application. It will launch your application, right? So Nitish is asking, can you provide the steps? Can you provide the steps? I mean, what steps you want? The installation steps? So installation steps I will provide. This installation steps are only just 2 steps. I mean, so the better thing is I will recommend when you're installing it. I'm recommending this thing, guys. So just go to the create React app Git. So they have created already. The Facebook already created the steps. So I just show you. I follow the same steps. So it is saying npm or npx, right? So this is the first thing. So this is the first thing. And if you're using npx, right? So I believe if some of them is installing the first time the node, so they have the npx because all have the latest version. So they can use these 3 steps. That is the only required thing, right? So that is the only required thing to do. So npx create React app, and this is what? This is the name of the project, whatever you want to provide. Once the project is get created, then do cd, then do npm start. That's it. Make sense, guys? So I am sending these steps. So try these steps. If you are working with npm, I mean you do not have the npx, or let's say somebody have the already installed node, so the step would be changed. It is npm first create React app, and then you install I for installation. It would be get installed and then -g. Once this thing is done, then the second step is this thing without npx, right? This is for those who are using npm only. Then these steps are repeated. Make sense? So I'm also sharing this, who having the older version of node in their machine. I mean, they already installed them. So I share both of the steps on chat window. Anything else, guys? So Vikas is asking, return is basically a function. I mean, we are calling a function, right? So we are calling a function. That's why we are using return bracket. So it is mandate to use. Anubhav is asking what app.js and index.js is doing. App.js, Abhinav is Anubhav, basically app.js is for component. So this is your component, right? And index.js is basically to integrate with a component. So your HTML is get integrated with the component with index.js. So if you just see, this is the HTML part you're writing. It means you're accessing a div, and then you're integrated with the app. So app is a component, right? And index.js is integrating with that component. There is a need of this 2 files. Anything else, guys? So this is just a kickstart, because we are going to build the application once we are very familiar with this thing. Any other question, guys? Nirosha is saying this looks like Django, but Django is for the server side, it is for the client side. It's a huge difference. So many things are there. It has a component because Django is also providing the components things, but it is entirely on the server side when you're using a Django. So I'm checking error. You not put my space bit after, I mean, after app, there is a space. Then you type -g, right? That's why it is not working. So npm I create React app, then space -g. Bharadwaj, can you share the screenshot so I can identify? the error. Meanwhile, I'm uploading the code. So this is a promise code I'm sharing. In React, we have not done any code right now. So when in a second half, we're starting this code. Okay, I'm just checking up. Gunjan is sharing cannot identify path of first React app. I think Gunjan, your installation has been done or not? I mean, have you typed this create React app in the project name? Where you typed it, can you send the screenshot of it? Because asking app.js is a component, yes, app.js is a component. Bharatwaj, you type npm start. You need to go to the, you have not created this thing, create React app, then project name. That is a thing. You have only done npm start. So first of all, after installation of create React app, type create React app, then space project name. Then the project folder is get created. Then go to CD. So I already shared the commands and then do npm start because your project is not created. Only the command is executed. Rahul is saying